Hey guys, Dan here with a movie review for you for Bill and Ted Face the Music. I am going to do another, like a full movie review episode in a few days, taking a look at some of the Disney Plus new releases before we get Mulan on Friday. But I really thought Bill and Ted kind of deserved their own standalone review. And First of all, I put on my Rock and Roll Hall of Fame shirt this morning, not even thinking it was related to Bill and Ted's. But once I started filming, I noticed the shirt. I was like, oh yeah, that kind of works. But this is a very kind of special series of films for me. First of all, huge music fan, especially like rock music. But my brothers are named Bill and Ted. And so when the movie came out, we were all in middle school, I guess. Yeah, because the first one was like late 80s. So yeah, we were all in middle school, and then in high school, a couple of us were in high school, and then my younger brother was still in middle school in the 90s. So, the Bill and Ted theme ran through, the better part of my teenage years. And other than that, I loved these movies. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was a huge hit in my house. We watched it all the time. And then Bogus Journey, sort of not so much. We didn't own it, so we didn't see it all that much. But I saw it in theaters for sure, which I did not see the first one in theaters. We saw that for the first time on VHS. Um, and so, this series has a lot of meaning, I think, to me and my family. So much so that instead of just watching it here by myself like I usually do. This is my bedroom, by the way. I know sometimes I'm in the basement, sometimes I'm up here in the bedroom. Also, you might notice a crisper picture. I'm fiddling around with doing videos on my iPhone in the 1080p format, so hopefully this looks pretty good for you. But anyway, I went down a couple hours to my brother's place yesterday, and we rented it. We had shown the other two Bill and Ted's movies over the years to my nephew, who is now 15. So he was all on board to watch it too. My sister-in-law watched it with us. I mean, it was quite the event, really. So the question is it any good? So let's talk about it. First of all, we knew going into it, obviously, that George Carlin has passed away, so he is not going to be in it. He was in it for about 10 seconds or whatever in archival footage, which was a very sweet nod. But I had heard that Kristen Shaw from Bob's Burgers and some other things, The Daily Show, would be basically the new Rufus. And I wasn't sure what exactly that meant. I sort of figured maybe she'd be playing his daughter, and sure enough, she is. She's playing her daughter, Kelly, and her name is a tribute to George Carlin because his real life daughter is named Kelly Carlin. So, I thought that was very nice. Obviously, the filmmakers have a lot of reverence for the wonderful George Carlin. So this movie was directed. I'm not exactly sure how to say the last name, but it's Dean Parisot. It's Parisot. Parisot, maybe if it's French, or Parisot if it's not. But he's done a few films over the years. He doesn't do a ton of them. He did a lot, or a few, I should say, in the late 90s, and then sort of very sporadic since then. But he did Galaxy Quest, which is, an excellent film, great sci-fi spoof. And then in 2005, he did Fun with Dick and Jane, which was an okay movie. 2013, he did Red 2, which is also an okay movie. And then Bill and Ted's Face the Music. So he doesn't have a ton of directing experience, but the ones he's directed have been at least okay. None of them have been like horrible. But it was written by Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon, who wrote the first two movies. So I was so glad to see that, because so often, especially when sequels come out long after the fact, I mean, this is almost 30 years since the previous film, and more than 30 years since the first installment. A lot of times you just get, I don't know, more like fanboys writing the scripts. And here we've got the real McCoy, which I think really, really helped. So, of course, Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, return as Ted and Bill, respectively. And the plot basically picks up in present day, but they're now almost 30 years on from finding out in the second film that a song that they write is going to essentially, bring the world together, unite the world, and they still haven't written it. So they're down in the dumps. They're like, look, when is the song coming that we're going to write that really is going to help the world and heal the world? And they find out in short order through the Christian Shaw character Kelly that it's actually more than that. They need to actually save the world with this song, not just heal it, not just help some people, not just unite the world. They need to save the world with this song, or it will end. And we find that out sort of in a time travel scene going a couple hundred years forward, and Holland Taylor is there as the great leader, the most powerful person in the universe. And she basically tells them that. So they have to try and figure out how they can go about doing that. And they think, well, shoot, we have a time machine. Why don't we go from 2020 into the future and talk to ourselves and figure out how we wrote this song and so on. So all the while, you've also got their daughters, who is Theodora Thea Preston and Wilhelmina Billy Logan, played by Samara Weaving and Brigitte Lundy Payne. Now, Samara Weaving, I know from a recent film that was actually really good, a recent horror film called, what was that called? Oh, Ready or Not. Yeah, man, that was a good movie. She's also been, in a couple other things, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, for one thing. But this Brigitte Lundy Payne, I don't really know. But I think she actually kind of stole the movie. She's been in a couple things I've seen. She was in Action Point. She played a small role in Downsizing. Oh, it's a horrible movie. Glass Castle I've never seen, but I've heard that's good. And she had a small role in Bombshell as well. So, I've seen her in a couple of things. But to me, she really stole the movie. She is the, spitting image. They really did her up to look exactly like Keanu Reeves' character back in the day. And it's funny that so Ted named his daughter after Bill, and Bill named his daughter after Ted. So it's interesting that she's playing the Billy character, but it's Billy Logan, so she actually is Ted's daughter. But her mannerisms and the speaking pattern, it's so spot on. Spitting image. I have no doubt that she watched a lot of the original couple of movies to get some of those mannerisms down. And Samara Weaving is fine, but I think we can all agree that Keanu Reeves has a more distinctive speaking style and mannerisms than Alex Winter, did, certainly back then. Obviously now Keanu has, expanded his portfolio a great deal with, John Wick and some romance movies as well. But this sort of, whoa, and all that kind of stuff. That was the go-to Keanu Reeves persona for a while. Point Break and The River's Edge and a lot of those earlier films, really. It's what really made him so good for The Matrix, if I'm being honest. But anyway, so they decide to help out their fathers by getting in a different time machine, Kelly's time machine, because she doesn't have the old phone booth. Bill and Ted are doing that on their own. So Bill and Ted are going to the future to find their future selves, and so they run into a handful of different Bill and Teds from the future, played by themselves, Reeves and Winter, as the daughters are going back in time to try and cultivate, the greatest band of all time. So they go to see Jimi Hendrix and Mozart and a few other people. So that's really all I guess I'll say about the plot. I don't like to do spoilers on this channel, and I think that's more than enough right there. But one of the things I really appreciated about this movie, and I guess it's because in part it was written by the original writers, and because Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves are friends in real life and really wanted to do this as, a love letter to the fans. I'm sure Keanu probably wanted to get Alex Winter some work, really. He does documentaries and stuff. He's a producer now, but he doesn't do a lot of in front of the camera stuff with big paychecks, and so this could be maybe a way to do that. But I think there was a lot more to it than that. I think you'd be able to tell if it was more or less a cash grab from these actors, like I think some of the more recent long in the tooth sequels have been. Dumb and Dumber, I think, or no, Dumb and Dumber 2, TO, is, I think, the prime example of that. It had a few funny moments, but I mean, that original Dumb and Dumber is such a classic. Like, you think of that as like an A, top tier 90s comedy. And the new one was like a C minus or something. It was just such a step down from the original. And Zoolander 2, I could say as well. I wasn't so fond of the original Zoolander as a lot of people were, so I think that for me is probably just kind of like a B minus maybe in itself. But the second one was certainly a step down from that even. So it's rare that you get a movie sequel almost 30 years in the making and it's good. So it could have been a cash grab. I don't think that's what this was. I think this was a love letter to the fans. I think it was a bromance movie for Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. And this has really been through the ringer. I mean, it started sort of the writing process back in 2010, and I've heard rumors, since then, pretty much like the last decade, about, Bill and Ted's 3 is happening, Bill and Ted's 3 is happening. But like so many of those rumors, they don't come to be. Beetlejuice has been talked about for a sequel for 15 years probably now. So the fact that about a year and a half ago it all was like coming to light, and no, it's real, it's going to happen, and there were photos posted in like late 2019. And this movie is an unfortunate recipient, I think, of COVID-19, because I think this is one that would have really had people flocking to theaters, something that comedies don't generally do today. I mean, even a comedy that does pretty well, like Good Boys, let's say, still doesn't even really make $100 million, but this could have been a huge, huge success. And it's funny because theaters opened this weekend, but because United Artists put it on demand, because they didn't know a couple of months ago when theaters were going to be open. So they originally set an August 21st date, which is great because 8, 21, 20, and 20, if you add those all together, they equal 69, which apparently they didn't do on purpose. Somebody just kind of realized it after they had set the date, but I think that's brilliant. But then at the time, like the Christopher Nolan movie Tenet was still scheduled for an August release, so they were shuffling things around. So they were like, okay, let's do August 28th. And then it was announced that it was just going to be on demand. And then theaters were opening back up. So they were like, okay, well, I guess any theater that's open, that wants the movie on the 28th can have it. So essentially, Regal and AMC and all the big people have sort of made it clear, like, we don't want anything to do with a movie that's going on demand the same day it goes into theaters. Screw that. We're going to run our own movie. So it's not playing at any of the Regals or the AMCs. It's going to be at, independent theaters, drive-ins, that kind of thing. The closest place it's playing near me is a drive-in, actually, about 20 miles from here. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. The whole drive-in thing is hot right now. But, for $20, like all these other COVID-19 releases, you can get it on demand, or you can actually buy it on demand too for $25. So, we went with the rental, but this movie is very funny. It captures the entire spirit of the first couple of films. You can tell, I think, that Reeves and Winter are buddies in real life because the chemistry is still very much there. You can tell that these characters have spent the last 30 years together. They're still, doing their thing, playing dive bars and all this kind of thing, but they're still trying to make it happen and still, best friends. And that comes through. The plot is way too convoluted, I think. I think there's too much going on. I actually am not sure, sadly, if you need Kristen Schall's character at all. I mean, obviously they wanted to do a nod to Rufus and everything, but I'm not positive that she added much to the movie. And I like her. I think she's funny, but in this, it seemed a bit wasted. I think they could have maybe sort of bypassed that and had the Holland Taylor character just do everything. There's like a robot that Holland Taylor sends to kind of stop this from happening because she has her own sort of ideas about the future of everything. And who's he played by? Anthony Carrigan, um, who, well, I don't want to give too much away, but he has a funny sort of arc in the film towards the end. And I have not mentioned Mr. William Sadler yet. He has been touted in all of the marketing, really, but he returns as Death, as the Grim Reaper. He was in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which he basically stole that movie as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he was so funny in it, and it's great. Like he's made this career of some really like intense movies. He's done Shawshank Redemption, and he did Man on a Ledge, and August Rush and The Green Mile, and all of these very like intense movies or more action oriented movies. But he obviously showed us in 1991 that he was funny too, and so I'm so glad that he's back. He doesn't show up till I would say about 2/3 into the movie, but he has a pretty funny arc too. I mean, he's kind of fallen on hard times, and I don't want to give too much away, but he's very funny as well. So the plot is certainly convoluted. I think there's a lot going on. I had a couple of questions about plot points that I was glad I watched it, with my family, so we sort of sussed out, like, my nephew was like, okay, well, maybe, this could happen, or maybe it was this way, or my brother would see something I didn't see. So, it was good to kind of bounce those ideas off. I do still think it's too convoluted. I think they could have, spiced that up a little bit with maybe more jokes and less, plot contrivances. But the two kind of main plots, like Bill and Ted going into the future to locate themselves, and their daughters going into the past to locate musicians. I mean, I think that all works really, really well. I think the stuff with the robot works pretty well. And we even see some of the old, actors from the original movie, other than, the people I mentioned. You have Hal Landon Jr. as, Ted's father, and I'm almost positive that's the same gentleman that played Ted's father in the beginning. And you have Amy Stotch as Missy, who was also Missy in the original movie. I think she was in Bogus Journey too. But so that is great that they really got pretty much everybody that's still with us. Rest in peace, George Carlin. But everybody that's still with us, they pretty much got any of the old characters that we loved, other than like the classic people they picked up in the first movie. They're not going to bring Abe Lincoln back or whatever. There's no point. But it's got a short run time, and I actually think it could have used an extra scene or two at the end. It sort of just ends, which I have to admit I didn't love. Now there's a mid credit scene and an end credit scene that are like okay, but it doesn't really advance sort of the storyline or the plot at all. And you have to imagine this is going to be the final chapter in Bill and Ted, so it would have been nice to get some sort of coda other than the last scene and then basically roll credits. I mean, that really is what happened. So didn't love that, but look, for all intents and purposes, this could have been a disaster of a movie. It could have been a cash grab only. It could have really not done much other than like fan service stuff. And believe me, it does all the fan service stuff. But Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter are having a blast here, not only as current 2020 Bill and Ted, but in the future doing the other Bill and Teds. At one point they are in like a prison scene, and like they're all they have this fake bodysuit obviously, but they're all like super jacked up, and they're having a lot of fun with that. Samara Weaving and Bridget Lundy Payne are having a lot of fun doing their best Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves impressions. So this film works, I think, a lot better than it should, and the message of it, of unity and coming together and all of that, is great. Certainly needed in 2020, but it's uplifting, and that's what I feel like this series has always been about. The first movie, they were idiots and they were slackers and whatever, but at the end of the day, they were good kids. They just wanted to go through time to write this great history paper for their class and all this, and get a good grade on it. And so when Rufus presents them with the opportunity, they're like, well, hey, let's go do this. But they always had good hearts though, and I think that is something that shines through in all three of the movies. So, this might be graded a little bit on a curve because this movie could have been so much worse than it is. But I genuinely laughed many times in this. I think there's a lot of good to it. I think it's definitely, the plot is a little too convoluted, and I think it certainly ends too early. I can't deny either of those things. But I had a blast watching this. I think it is a very, very worthy sequel to the previous installment almost 30 years ago. So I leave Bill and Ted Face the Music with a B plus. So I usually, when I do the weekly movie reviews, I take about 6 or 7 minutes to talk about each movie before moving on to the next one, and I package them all in 3 or 4 movies at a time. But this one, I knew I was going to want to talk about. Bill and Ted's holds such a special place in my heart, my family's heart. So I knew I was going to run off at the mouth a bit with that. So I'm glad I chose to give it a standalone video. I should say. But like I said, I am going to have a video coming up in a few days with 3 of the recent Disney Plus movies: Magic Camp, Phineas and Ferb, the Candace Against the Universe movie, and the one and only Ivan. I'm going to try and put that up Thursday before Mulan comes on, and then next week I'm going to have another batch. There's actually a bunch of movies that I need to review, that some I've seen, some I haven't seen yet, but like An American Pickle, the Seth Rogen movie on HBO Max, obviously Mulan when that comes out. But there's a few other ones in the mix. I don't know if I'm going to get to the theaters to see New Mutants or not. We'll see about that. I mean, I'm at a second run theater, so we may get the New Mutants in just a few weeks anyway. I don't know. But we'll see. There's definitely a lot of product out there. But other than that, I've got Dan Does Disney coming up tomorrow. Tim and I did The Living Desert for that, a documentary film from the 50s. And then Wednesday I'll have a new TV review, and hopefully Friday I'll have a new Freaks and Geeks review. So this whole week, I think is going to be stacked with new content for my channel. So if you like that, awesome. Please watch. Please subscribe too. I'm nearing 500 subscribers, so that's always fun. And comment below. Let me know what you thought of Bill and Ted's, please. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.